I think it's important when you're trying to live authentically to compartmentalize the opinions and perceptions of others. And I say this with grace. But if you want to live authentically to yourself, you cannot let other people influence that and strictly from one true avenue. And I'll give you why. From my perspective, people are a cultivation of their own experiences and their own perceptions based off of, let's say, language, how they've learned to communicate, their own culture, again, their own events, experiences, whatever. Beliefs. If you allow the perception of somebody else into your world to define you, you won't be able to live true to who you are. And in fact, you'll start taking over and sponging that person's perception of the world. And this is where things get a little bit complicated, because as kids, right, we're perceiving our entire world through others. We're looking at what others are seeing, we're hearing what others are saying, we're seeing interactions between people, and we're absorbing, right? And so then that cultivates a perception that we have of the world through our teens into our adulthood. And often when we're in our adulthood, we don't get that kind of like guidance of, hey, what you've learned as a child and what you've absorbed that's become your perception really has nothing to do with you. You need to drop it. And you need to make your own individual decisions as an adult as to how you want to see the world. We're just kind of like let wild out there, and we have no buckle on ourselves. Some of what we've, I think, absorbed as kids is fine, right? Like there are parts of me that I'm grateful I have, right? But there are also parts and beliefs that I had and perceptions that I had of the world that did not serve me at all. And they were not even things that, if like my conscious adult mind, when I think about it, I would never choose to think that about myself, or to think that about another person, or to even think that about the world, right? Like, call me a dreamer, but I do believe most people are inherently good, and that, we make mistakes, and that's just what's supposed to happen. And sometimes we make mistakes more than once. But again, that's how we learn, right? Like, we're supposed to continue growing through life. So, I don't, in my world at least, call me a wishful thinker, but, I think most people are inherently good or want to do good by others. Maybe don't know how to, right? But I had like things that I'd cultivated through the years that would counteract that inherent, like, natural part of me that's like, I don't think people are bad, And so, especially my early 20s, I would say, yeah, my early 20s up until I was like 25-ish, I avoided people like the plague, because my experiences with people throughout my childhood and the narratives that I saw was, stay away from people. People are dangerous. People are rude. People are mean. People don't like you. And that really did fog up and cover my the way I kind of went about in the world. Like, I had a very small group of very trusted friends that I had for many years, and that was it. Like, I was not the kind of person to be like, there's one belief that I remember hearing, and I latched onto it. I was like, oh, this must be true. You can't find friends after you're 20. I don't know why, and I don't remember where I heard it from. I don't remember where I heard it from. And I'm so glad I don't subscribe to that anymore, because I have some friends I found in my 20s that, like, I don't think I could live without right now or ever. So, but like, it's just ludicrous, right? Like, when you think about it, you're like, why? So, you know, there are these perceptions that we obtain through our childhood, through our teen years, whatever. And then we become adults and we don't check them. We don't check them at the door. We just go, you know, I'm going to go about my adult life, applying all these to everything. Often those perceptions don't even belong to us. Well, they don't belong to you. You've accumulated it from somewhere. You know, and you don't know if where you obtained that belief is somebody who's experienced a ton of trauma in their life, and so they can't see the world any other way, and now you've absorbed the trauma, right? We talk about, you know, generational trauma, so to speak. You're just, like, you don't know, and it's not to say that people, like, are doing this to you in a malicious way. Like, I'm not saying, like, someone's trying to trauma dump their shit on you. That's not what I'm saying. People often don't even realize that their own perceptions are being fueled by their trauma. They don't even realize that their perceptions are being fueled by their own, like, almost like shortcomings, right? They don't realize that their perceptions are being fueled by their own inauthenticity. That's another one. Because when people are acting fake, when people are acting with a mask, often their perceptions will follow their mask and not what they truly know. This is where we talk about, you know, people kind of like disconnecting with themselves. This is where you get that disconnect of, you know, people acting not very good. Because, you know, inherently, I think if we were honest with ourselves about our shortcomings and we didn't go through the world trying to just save face, we wouldn't be having these kinds of disagreements or miscommunications. But we don't check these beliefs at the door. And then we go about our worlds living with the lenses of somebody who maybe went through severe trauma, and we're seeing now through their eyes, not even our own, because we haven't taken the time to cultivate what we truly believe about the world, or even assess. That's the thing. We haven't even assessed our surroundings to say, are people really bad? You know, in my life, I moved from, I don't want to be around people, to slowly, because I was an actor for a few years, slowly moving into, okay, the acting space is safe. So actors feel good because they're very vulnerable. They tend to be very vulnerable, open people. And then COVID happened and that shut down again. But then after COVID, you know, fast forward to my divorce, I was forced into a situation where I had to start trusting other people, like in a way that I had never done before, like being vulnerable with people I didn't know. And that was terrifying, right? Like that whole concept in and of itself was like, what? How? What does this mean for me? And honestly, what I had learned in that process was, wow, people are great. I've been wrong this whole time. I've totally seen the world the wrong way this whole time. And it's interesting because, honestly, if it wasn't for those people, I don't know that I would have made it this far. I went through some tough shit. So we're going to leave that for another day. But if it wasn't for the support of others, I don't know that I'd be here right now, quite frankly. So at the end of the day, you know, I never put my perceptions into check. And I didn't really I also didn't take the time to see other people's perceptions. I was in my own world. And often when we're in our own world, we're tunnel visioned on our own stuff. And we just don't have the space. This will have to be another video. We'll talk about it later. But inauthenticity often doesn't give us the space to be able to see others, because we're just obsessed with ourselves and making sure that our mask doesn't fall off. So that being said, you know, when you come up into the world and somebody, I don't know, says something about you or gives you a perception of the world, like, I don't know, there's no good men out there. That's a good one. That's one that's everywhere. You know, it's really on you to sit there and be like, you know, I don't want to believe that. I understand maybe you've experienced that, and you're probably experiencing that because you believe that. You're probably experiencing that because you can't see the world in any other way. So even if there was a good man out there, readily available and making himself available for you, you wouldn't be able to see it past your perception of there's no good men out there. I don't want that. You know? I'm good. Thank you. You gotta filter. You gotta start filtering and paring down the belief systems that you've had all these years. If you're an adult and you're listening to this, you gotta start doing that. Because I bet you there's a bunch of things you're walking around in this world with that are just making your experience a million times worse, and it has nothing to do with you to begin with.